Welcome to another episode of the Everyday Expertise Podcast. I'm your host, Roland Martin, and I hope that today's conversation will expand your knowledge. Today I welcome my cousin, Tory Martin, to the show. Tory spends her time working as a dog groomer, and in this conversation, talks about how she became a groomer, as well as talking about some of the things that she regularly does on the job. Throughout the conversation, she sprinkles in advice on how to take good care of your pet, and also talks about some things to consider if you are thinking about working with animals, especially in the area of grooming, and maybe some things that you should think about before you start with that. As always, I left this conversation knowing a lot more than I did going into it, and I hope that you too will enjoy this conversation and learn from her expertise. Welcome, Tory, to the Everyday Expertise Podcast. I'm really glad to have you here and learn from you today.
Yes, thank you for having me here. It's good to be here.
Excellent. So tell me, what keeps you busy currently?
So currently I stay busy working in an animal hospital, and I groom dogs there. And if I'm not working, then I'm at home, not usually doing much. There's not a whole lot to do right now, as everyone knows.
Yeah.
But usually just like reading or watching something or walking. I do a lot of walking.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, just go a little bit into what kind of a typical day looks like for you, or what are some of the things that you do with your grooming job?
Yeah, so a typical day for me, it does really vary because I work by appointments. So
Okay.
everything's like pre-booked.
Okay.
Or hopefully everything's pre-booked. But it really varies how many dogs I do in a day.
Okay.
And I'm also just getting started as a groomer on my own. So I have to build a name for myself kind of before I get a lot. But typically I will have anywhere between a nice day would be anywhere between 4 to 8 dogs, depending on what the type is. And then that would include me bathing them and drying them and doing their haircut and nails and every other thing that you can need.
Can there be a variation in how long it takes to do a dog?
Yeah, for sure. So some dogs are tiny and other dogs are huge, obviously.
Right, that would make a difference how much hair there is to take care of, I guess.
But there's also you could be doing a big lab and it won't take long because it's a short hair, so you don't have to do a haircut.
The type of dog makes a difference too, rather than just the size of it.
Yes, and even a golden retriever, although they're really hairy, they don't take as long because you're not doing a huge haircut, but you are doing some trimming. But it might not even take as long as, say, a Shih Tzu where you're doing a full haircut, even though it's small.
Yeah. So you said that it's by appointment. So do owners request you, or do you just kind of is there a few of you that get appointments with different dogs, or?
Yeah, so right now I work with a groomer who's been grooming for 30 years.
Okay.
So she has tons of clients and she's always fully booked.
Oh, yeah.
So whenever we get new clients calling, they usually are directed to me.
Okay.
Because they're new, so they don't know any different anyway.
Yep.
So I will do those dogs usually, and then if they like me, hopefully they return, and then if they really like me, they'll usually ask for, is Tory available?
Oh, nice.
Which is always a good feeling.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so there are starting to be a few
I've had
dogs that you're getting to know, and
had some repeats, which is always nice, and it always, I don't know, it feels good because then you can make you can start to have a relationship with the dog and the owner, and that always makes grooming more fun.
Yeah. Do you think that do you get to the point where some dogs recognize you, or?
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I have an American bulldog who comes probably monthly.
Okay.
So just short hair, but he has skin issues, so he comes for a medicated bath.
Okay.
And his nails done. And he wags his tail so much. He's the friendliest thing. He looks huge and intimidating, but he's the cutest, friendliest thing.
Nice.
And he definitely recognizes me by now.
Okay. Yeah. And I guess if you do it every month, you've been doing him a number of times. Yeah. Oh, very good. And we'll get more into some of the things that you do as we talk about techniques, and also how you got into it and things like that too. You mentioned some of the hobbies and interests that you that you have outside of work. Is there anything else that you wanted to share, or did you mention the things that your hobbies and interests there?
Well, one thing I thought of when I started this job was like I used to draw and paint a lot, and when I was working in retail, I did that more after work. Whereas now that I've been grooming, I've noticed I rarely do that.
Okay.
And I think it's probably just because grooming kind of provides an artistic outlet for me, whereas before I didn't have that, so I had to do something else.
Interesting.
I just found that interesting about my job because I definitely noticed like a big difference. And I don't think it's a time thing because I still have time to draw. I don't really,
the desire isn't there as strongly.
The desire is not as strong, no.
Yeah. Did you have you ever experimented at all with drawing or painting any of the dogs that you
No, but
do?
that's probably because animals were never my specialty.
Oh, I see. Okay. It's
my
not
mom
something
is
you
good
enjoyed.
with horses and dogs and stuff. I can't draw those.
Okay, so that wasn't
Very well,
wasn't those two worlds weren't really connecting. No. Oh, very good. That's interesting. So yeah, let's I'd like to hear a little bit about your story, kind of how you gotten into what you're doing, what's led you there. So maybe I guess my first question here is, where did your love of animals come from, or how did that develop?
Yeah, so I've kind of loved animals for as long as I can remember. I don't remember ever being scared of them or not liking them. I mean, other than like snakes, but
Okay.
but yeah, I think, and my mother, as you know, like loves dogs too, so that is I'm assuming that's where I got it.
Yeah.
We did have dogs growing up, and I remember like I said, I was never afraid of them. I actually have a scar on my eyebrow because I was too bold with a dog.
Oh, really?
Once. Yeah. I was
When you were really young? Or?
Really young.
Okay.
Like, it was after we had our one dog. So I think that's what it was, because I knew that I could take a toy from my dog and it's no issue.
Right.
But I was too dumb to know that you can't do that with like every dog you meet.
Okay.
So like I was at a friend's house or something and I just went for it to like, I wanted to throw the dog's bone, so I just went and grabbed the dog's bone from it.
So it was playing with it, and you're
It was near the bone, and I grabbed it to throw it, you know,
just
to be
play
nice.
to play with the dog, yeah.
Which is really dumb, and you should never do that with a dog you don't know. But yeah, I got a good bite. I have
really?
I have a little chunk missing in my eyebrow.
Wow.
But
so that's amazing that didn't...
It didn't scare me off, because I don't even remember like the trauma afterwards. I just look at the scar and like laugh. But like, I guess I learned from it because I would never do that now. But it didn't scare me off, and I've always loved dogs.
So is it something that you remember happening at the time?
I remember it happening. I don't remember the pain or anything, but like I just remember being like, oh, well, it's just trying to throw a bone.
Yeah.
And then my mom probably explained it then. It's like, just because you do that with your dog at home doesn't mean you can touch a strange dog's toys. Like, that's a bad idea. Yeah.
So did you have a dog from as long as you can remember?
I think we had a golden retriever like back when I was a baby, so I don't remember that at all. But I think I was probably about 6 when we got our miniature schnauzer, and then he lived 10 years. So 6 to 16, we had a dog. Right. For me.
Yeah. And I interacted quite a bit with your family through that time, so I got to know him a little bit too. So it's.
He was a good intro dog for me, like very friendly and playful, and
yeah. So you've had this love of animals. You had animals in your house for most of your growing up years, in your home there, and was it always a consideration that you'd maybe like to do something with animals for a career, or where did that kind of grow into? Where did your love for animals grow into considering doing it for a job?
I think like everyone has those ideas of what they want to be when they grow up, and I think I've definitely like thought about animal careers, like vet and groomer and stuff. Like I don't remember seriously considering grooming until I was older, though. Okay. I don't know what brought it on. I think I just like wasn't happy where I was working. Right. So looking for something different. Would you have been familiar with the grooming industry with having a pet? Like, did you interact some with groomers? I remember I went with my mom to the groomer sometimes when I was younger, but you don't you don't allow owners to stay with the dog when you get groomed, because usually they're very bad then.
Okay.
It's like when you take your kid to the daycare, they're like usually better for the daycare than they are for you at home.
Right.
Or I've heard. But so I don't actually, I had like no experience with groomers.
So you weren't watching
I wasn't watching.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything. But I knew that I wanted to work with animals, and I knew that I could not be a vet.
Okay.
It just wasn't for me. For one thing, like, you need a lot of science.
Right.
And my mind just is not great with science.
Okay. Yeah.
I took biology as an elective in high school and lasted about a week.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then I dropped out.
Yeah.
It was like a self-taught elective, I believe.
Right.
So I don't learn well when I'm teaching myself.
Right,
I learn better with a teacher. So that was one reason. But yeah, also you have to be like not as emotional, I think, because you see a lot of sick animals, you see a lot of dying animals, and a lot of crying people, and I just don't do well with that. I would just be crying with them, which isn't it's not very professional. So
yeah, so you don't have to deal with the death of animals and things like that.
Hopefully not. It does happen occasionally, but usually it's because a very, very, very old dog or something, but it doesn't happen very often that you have to deal with that kind of thing.
Yeah. Right.
With grooming. Yeah.
So that was out. Were there other things that you were looking at besides getting into grooming, or was that kind of the main thing that you looked at for being able to work with animals?
I considered training too, which I still think would be kind of fun. And I actually, so when I was looking into grooming, I was looking up schools. Like I mentioned before, a lot of groomers are self-taught, but I don't do well that way. So I looked into schooling, and that's where I found Northern College, which is like the tiniest little college up north. And I just kind of like decided to like apply.
Okay.
It was it's just, I kind of just went for it, not knowing anything about grooming, which is kind of silly. Maybe you don't do that. But for me, I got lucky and I love it. But for not everyone.
So it would have been possible to find an assistant position or something without any schooling?
Work as a bather for some groomer. That would be a good way to see if you like it.
Okay, so there are kind of entry positions within it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to be like just go to straight grooming unless you groom for your own dog or groom for like a friend, because not people don't trust you, which it makes sense. You don't really want to trust just anyone when they have scissors and razors with their dog. So it makes sense that it's a little hard to get into if you don't have any experience, but you could work as an assistant.
Yeah. And that would maybe give you some training opportunities or helping out and kind of learning on the job like that. Yeah. So where did you learn about this college program, or did you just find it in your research, or did you find it somewhere else?
I think I just found it in my research. Like, there aren't a whole lot of school options for grooming in Ontario. There's probably only a few, and I picked Northern College because it had a longer course and it looked like it covered more. Like, it was about 8 months, so I lived there for 8 months, and it had, you can groom dogs. They have a rescue at the school. You can groom those dogs, and also the little town, they offer grooms for like $10. So people would bring in their dogs and allow students to practice on them for $10, which is a really good deal for them.
Right, yeah.
And obviously there's a teacher there helping you along the way, so.
Yeah. So you got a lot of experience with grooming in the classes that you took?
I would say it was pretty good. Got quite a bit of experience with grooming, and also there was a behavioral, like animal behavior class, which I found really interesting. And you worked with training some of the rescues, and there were several like vet assistant type courses too. A lot of the grooming and vet assistants kind of overlapped a lot. So you got some of that, which is more helpful than you would think when you're grooming.
Yeah, I'm sure. Were all the courses in those 8 months, were they all prescribed, or did you have some choices of what you could take along with the program?
I don't think there are any choices.
Okay, so they have there's enough that fit in.
Course. Well, there is some classes that I'm like, this is clearly a filler class. Like, I don't belong here. I think one time the teacher literally was like, sorry, groomers, this is a filler class for you, which maybe isn't the best thing to say as a professor, but like it was true.
Okay. Like, well, what, like,
It was
what was
like
it?
the anatomy of a cow, things like that.
Oh,
And
I see. Okay. So it was still related
it
to
was still
animals.
animals, yeah,
Yeah.
and it was still like interesting, but it was definitely not necessary
Yeah.
for grooming.
Yeah. So very good. So you finished up this 8-month course grooming
Yes.
program, and did you look to get right into a grooming job from that? Or?
I did. I started to apply at grooming places pretty soon after I got back home. And it was kind of tough again because for one of the things I struggle with the most is speed.
Okay.
So you're really like supposed to be doing the grooms in a pretty good time so that people don't have to wait too long. And that's a hard thing. That's something you learn over like grooming for years. You get
Right.
faster.
Yeah.
Whereas I was just starting, so my speed wasn't the greatest. So I think that's what held me back. But I actually started at the hospital where I'm currently working as a bather.
Okay.
So even though I had my grooming certificate, I started as a bather, and it's basically just doing a lot of prep work for the actual groomer.
Okay.
So you get the dog's coat all dematted and cleaned and dry so that they can just go ahead and do the haircut right away.
Okay. Yeah.
And so by doing that, I got a lot of experience, and yeah, over the I did that for about a couple years, and as I was doing that, I also was like allowed more to help her with the actual haircuts too. So
Okay.
she started to let me do shaves, like whether it was like a really matted dog that I would just shave before the bath just to get that hair off, or eventually she started letting me do more like full haircuts, and
Okay.
also there's a rescue there, so I could practice on those dogs too, which is really good practice.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. And yeah, so just had the opportunity to get some extra practice
Yeah.
to work on skills and I guess building up that trust and things with clients like you talked about before too. Is that kind of go along with like was it kind of a process of moving into more grooming or slowly
Yeah,
over
so
time?
eventually, yeah, it was definitely slow for me, but I do everything slowly.
Okay.
So I just eventually just started doing, just upping my workload basically and doing more and more on the dogs that I felt comfortable. And then eventually I felt comfortable enough to book my own dogs.
Okay.
And that's when I started taking the new clients and just starting. Kind of had to just throw myself into
Okay,
it.
yeah.
Otherwise, I'd never do it. Or they kind of had to throw me into it.
Okay,
I should
I was-
say it was more their decision than mine.
I was wondering if it was something that you had to decide
No,
to do or
it
if
was
you
more
got pushed
them.
into
Like
it.
I did say I was interested, but I do definitely do better with a push. So they pushed me.
Okay.
And
Oh, that's great,
good.
yeah.
It was good for them to push me.
Yeah, well, and that I'm sure that helps with the confidence too when someone else is telling you, yeah,
Yeah.
you can do this.
It does.
You can go ahead and try that. Yeah, that's great. What's you talked about a rescue or that you have rescue dogs. What is that or what is the what does that mean?
So they have it's called Safe and Sound Rescue, and basically the owner of the hospital just like will find dogs that need a home or are like, it could be anything. They could be getting abused, they could be
Okay.
lost and they just don't have an owner anymore. It could be like a stray, or it could be a situation where someone is going to put it down but because they don't want to take care of it anymore. And
Oh, I see. Yeah.
you know, there's all kinds of things, but basically unwanted dogs. And
So does that mean that you didn't? The reason that was kind of a place that you were able to start was because they didn't necessarily have an owner that was
yeah, so there's no
caring who took
owner,
care
so
of
it didn't matter if anyone didn't like the haircut because
right,
it didn't
yeah.
have an owner, so it didn't matter what it looked like. So if I messed up, it wasn't a big deal, but it's
Yeah.
a very good way to practice is on rescues.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, they have a big rescue there, and they almost like basically always have dogs available for adoption.
Okay. Well, are those? Well, just back to that, I guess a little bit. Are there still dogs available for adoption there? I'd heard something about with COVID and things like that a lot of rescues were actually getting adopted and they were actually running out of them.
Yeah, they did try to get everyone adopted out, I think, before we were going on lockdown, they were trying to get all the dogs
Oh,
out of
I
there
see.
just so like
I see.
and try not to bring more in because there were less people to take care of them there at
Right.
the hospital too. But yeah, I heard that too, that like a lot of places were just everyone was adopting a dog because they were at home anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm sure there's probably like a lot of people who, when they went back to work, then were like, oh, well, now
What am I going to do? Yeah.
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 They kind of made like a spur of the moment decision to adopt a dog because
Yeah.
they had time, and then went back to work.
Yeah. Are you still doing some bathing and things like that, or are you spending most or all of your time with haircuts and grooming and things like that now?
Well, I do all my own bathing now because
Oh, okay.
So the groomer I mentioned before, she does like 14 dogs a day. Like, she really gets a ton done, but
Okay.
she has a bather who bathes and still does the prep work.
Okay.
Whereas I don't, and I do my own and don't book near as many.
Okay.
So
Yep.
you just
So-
have to book accordingly to what you can handle. And
I see. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good. Anything more that you wanted to say about kind of where you're at now or how it's gone since you've been working as a groomer?
Not really. No, I think we covered it.
All right. Then, I have some questions about kind of what the purposes are, or what you're looking for when you do grooming, and what maybe different owners are looking for with their dogs and things like that. So I guess, what are some of the general purposes for getting your dog groomed, or what's the reason that dogs get brought in?
Yeah, so there's a few purposes that just come right to mind. Would be like, obviously you want your dog to look cute. So that's like number one, just the aesthetic. And it's not the most important, but it is important. If
Yep.
you have like a longer haired dog, you just want to keep that hair looking good.
Mm-hmm.
And then the more important reasons would be the health of the coat of the dog. So you have to regularly brush it to make sure it doesn't get matted.
Okay.
And you got to keep the nails short on a dog, otherwise they can like curl into the pad. And this
Okay.
is more, it depends on the lifestyle of your dog too. So like if your dog walks every day on like concrete or something, it's probably wearing those nails
Oh,
down.
okay.
Whereas a little dog inside just running around probably doesn't wear them down as much if it's
Okay.
a lighter dog or something.
Yep.
It really varies, but nails have to be kept short and ears cleaned. All those things are like important to the health of an animal. And it's kind of like if the outside of the health, like the outside, the coat and the skin are really good tells of how the inside of a dog is
Okay.
doing.
Yeah.
So the skin is the other reason for regular grooming. We have like a lot of dogs that come in for medicated baths. So we
Okay.
just give them a medicated shampoo because they have skin issues and it can help with itching and things like that.
Okay.
So yeah, there are quite a few reasons to groom your dog, but mainly just health and appearance.
Yeah. How often does a dog need to be groomed to be healthy?
Again, it really varies on the kind
Okay.
and the type of hair they have, but probably like, I think we usually recommend 4 to 8 weeks, depending
Okay.
on the dog.
So
8 weeks,
every month or
8
two?
weeks is generally the maximum. A lot of people wait longer than that, but
Right. Yeah.
it's usually what we say if you want to keep the coat nice and a little longer.
Yeah. So do as a dog owner, do you have to kind of groom your dog regularly yourself, or can you just let it go until they bring it into you the next time? Is there like, do they need to brush it or anything,
yeah.
or give their dogs baths or anything like that?
Yeah.
On their
So
own?
again, it varies depending what kind of haircut they get. If they just get their dog like shaved nice and short, then they usually don't barely have to brush it, except for maybe like the tail and the ears and stuff.
Okay.
Because if there's a little mat or whatever, you can just shave it off. Whereas which a lot of people don't like that. So if you want your dog fluffy and long, then yeah, you got to put in the work, and you're gonna be brushing and combing that dog's hair quite a lot.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Like
So-
how often? Every few days?
Yeah, at
Okay.
least, or you could do it every day, really.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well,
It's like your own hair.
That's
Like
true,
you
yeah.
should be brushing your own hair, and if you don't, like I have really long hair. If I don't brush it, then it gets tangled. So
Right.
It's the same thing.
I guess. Yeah.
Only worse because they have it literally everywhere.
Yeah, that's
the
true.
hair.
It's not just on their heads.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. Do you find that there's different techniques for, you talked about that there's differences in the types of dogs, and you mentioned it a little bit, but what are some of the different techniques and things that you need to do with different dogs?
Yeah, there are a lot of different techniques. So, again, it depends on the breed, and it depends what the owner wants. So
Okay.
the owner, if they come in, it's nice when they have an idea of what they want, and either they show a picture or they describe it, and hopefully you understand what they're trying to say.
Are there kind of like hairstyles with dogs like there are with people too, or?
Yeah, there are some terms that people know, like, oh, they want like a top knot or whatever, which basically just means like a fluffier head or things like that. There are certain things that people will say, but generally they just try to describe a length of what they want left, and we try to accommodate that as best we can. And if we can, it just means they were like matted to the skin, but usually you can accommodate it pretty well.
Oh, okay. So sometimes it's
not doable.
I see, yeah.
You gotta go shorter, but
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, every breed has like what you call like a show cut.
Oh, okay.
And that's what they would do if they were like performing in like a behavioral thing, or if they were actually just in a show where they're being groomed. That would be like a show standard cut.
Okay. Yeah.
And luckily we do not get asked for those cuts very often because they're definitely more complicated.
Yeah.
But there are different techniques that I've learned from people I work with that they can show you. It's kind of like cheating, but they kind of show you just like easier ways to create a look that looks like professional and nice, but is not actually as intense and as complicated as the show cut. Okay. Which is good because those haircuts are also a ton of work for the owner to upkeep as well, because they're usually very long hair. So usually we try to do something that looks professional but is not necessary, like it's still practical too.
Yeah, because there like was time a factor there? Like are you
like
you getting into those show cuts?
For show cuts, they have like hours to do
really
that cut.
Okay.
I mean, there's maybe timed events too. I don't know enough about it either, but I know that a lot of them can just sit there and like pick at every little hair at their dog, whereas in a grooming like center, you're just trying to get the dogs through.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I catch you on now. There's actually like competitions where you'll do the cutting or the grooming right there?
Yeah, there's competitions, but that would be like, I think they're called master groomers, and you have to like get a certain like certificate or something to do that. And I mean, there's probably different levels of competitions too. Like maybe I could compete, I don't know, but I think like usually it's professional groomers that are competing, and they have to do like the show standard cut in order to win. And it would have to be like perfect.
Yeah, well, I'm always fascinated by competitions or things like that are out there that I have no idea about or have no idea that they're happening. So
no, it's a real thing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So do you had mentioned maybe it was back when you were talking about what a typical day looks like and things like that. But there are certain, like if a certain breed of dog comes in, there's kind of a standard way that one's taken care of, and you kind of learn.
Like a lot of like there's maybe like 2 different Cocker Spaniel cuts or something, and like a Bichon might have like usually the same cut. Like it's pretty by breed. Usually they get like similar cuts, and then maybe like this Yorkie might get a ponytail or something. Like there's the occasional difference, and people will want different things, but that's why we always make notes and make note cards. I always write down, especially if it's a new one, I'll make like detailed notes so that I know what to do next time, and then if they want something different, I can change it, but at least I'll know like what I did. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And do you kind of learn the different types of, like there's probably different types of hair on different types of dogs, and is that just kind of part of the process, is learning how to work with each one and things like that?
Sometimes I'll like get a dog and it'll have really straight hair and I just won't feel like it looks nice, whereas like a curly hair, when you go through the hair, it might like look better, like a more appealing, whereas a straighter hair is harder to cut because it looks more choppy when you're done. I don't really know how to describe it, but yeah, different coats definitely look different, and different blades you find that work better on different types. And there's like wiry hair too, and there's just different types, and you kind of learn as you go.
Are there I don't know, courses or videos and training things available to try to that you can kind of learn from or get ideas from and that kind of thing, or?
Yeah, I think there's like probably right now all online, but mostly like just like seminars, different seminars you can take, and there's different ones that will be specific to a certain thing. So like you could do one that is about using thinning shears, which is just for like detailed work and just but you could do a whole seminar that is dedicated to only that.
Okay.
Or and that's usually how the grooming things do. There's also like lots of YouTube videos you can watch about how to groom a dog, and so you obviously probably won't know much about the groomer, but like if the groom looks good, then
I was gonna say probably on YouTube some are good and some aren't quite as good.
Like everything on YouTube.
Yeah, true. Do you do some of that development on your own, or do you just kind of learn up on the job and?
I mostly learn from on the job, and I work with like someone who's been grooming for years, luckily. So she's helped me, or both of them have helped me out a lot and give me good advice when I need it. So I'm very lucky in that sense, because that's usually how I learn best, is right when they're there with me and like hands on. Yeah. But I have watched different YouTube videos if I'm looking for like a specific breed, because you can read books too, but it's easier when you can see someone doing the cut. And
kind of see what they're doing and see their technique and things like that. Yeah, that's great. Do you groom animals besides dogs, or is it just dogs that come in?
I don't. I only groom dogs, but that's a choice I've made. Where I work, they groom a lot of cats. Okay. So they either do just like a comb out if it has a couple mats or something and it doesn't groom itself for some reason. Yeah. Or if it's like matted, then sometimes we do a lion cut, which is just like shaving the body and you leave like a little mane.
Oh, really? Okay.
And you leave a pom-pom tail and little feet. So it's like a lion. But I don't do cats.
Is there a reason for that?
There's a reason. Most of the scars like I've gotten from my job are from cats. Okay. Just because I help restrain them sometimes, and they terrify me. Okay. I said earlier I'm not afraid of animals. I'm lying. I'm a little scared of cats. Okay. But it's more when I'm grooming them.
Yeah. Are they generally, like, do most people find that they're harder to work with, or is that
there are a lot of groomers that don't do cats at all. Okay. They're definitely tricky, but it's just because you can't really stand a cat up to groom it. It's all basically lying down, so you have to like kind of stretch them out. And some cats don't want to be stretched out, understandably. Yeah. So a lot of cats are fine, and then the next one will be very scary and it'll try to scratch you, and I don't know. I just don't enjoy it, and I like cats as the pet, but I'm not as much of a cat person. Like I don't feel like they like me as much. Maybe it's because I don't like them as much, but I think it's mutual. Yeah. And I definitely do better with the dogs than the cats. Okay. And so I've just decided not to do it. Yeah.
Are there other animals that need regular grooming besides dogs and cats?
I mean, there are, but as far as like small animals that come into a grooming salon, they're mostly just like we get the occasional rabbit for like a nail trim. Some people probably take their guinea pigs or like other small animals for nail trims. We don't really see many. We mostly see cats and dogs and then the occasional rabbit. Okay, yeah. And I guess some larger animals would need grooming. I mean, like horses need grooming and stuff too, but yeah, that's usually a different person.
Yeah, and I guess cows need trimming, but that's hoof trimming and things like that. That's its own separate.
I did like a little... Like one day at school, we went to a horse farm. Okay. And I'm really like second guessing. I'm not afraid of animals because I keep thinking of animals I'm afraid of. But like horses are scary for me too.
Yeah, well, they're big.
They're huge. Yeah. And like I'd never really been up close before. So we went to a horse farm and we were allowed to like clean the hoofs if we wanted to, and I didn't want to.
Oh, you chose not to?
I chose not to. Yeah. I brushed it a little, and I was like, good job, Tory. But I wasn't going to pick up the horse's foot.
Yeah. Oh, very good. I'm not sure if we've covered things here, but I asked what's all involved in the grooming process. So I know you mentioned some things, but are there other parts of it that you can mention?
Yeah, it's just, I think I said, usually you start with a bath because it's much easier to clean I mean, cut clean hair.
Yep.
But if the dog is really, really just a matted mess, then sometimes you just shave that off.
Oh, really?
Because
Okay.
you won't be able to keep it regardless, so you may as well bath a dog that doesn't have all that.
Okay, so it is possible to shave it when it's really
Yes,
matted?
yeah.
Okay.
And if they're really matted, sometimes you do a wet shave too, which is you just blow dry them a little and then do it damp.
Okay.
And try to save as much as you can. But usually you bath them, then you dry them, then you do the haircut.
Okay.
And you want to comb them out. If you want to leave their hair longer, then they have to be completely like mat free because you use like a guard. So if you're going through with a guard as opposed to just a blade, so like if you have a guard over the blade, then it needs to be mat free, otherwise you're going to get stuck.
Right.
And then if you get stuck, it sometimes like leaves a little chunk of hair missing. So you want to like comb that all out so it goes through smoothly and looks nicer.
Is this an electric razor that you're using, or electric clippers, or how do you? Okay, with the guard on it.
With the guard on it. Yeah. There's like one little portable one we have too that's just battery operated.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And that one's nice for doing things like in between the eyes, or just anywhere that's harder to get into because it's just easier when it doesn't have a cord on it.
Right.
So the little one I use for like sanitary, like in their groin or the pads of their feet. That's really important to do too.
Oh, okay.
And there's like very hairy pads of the feet, so you want to shave all that off, and then they don't slip around as much.
Okay. Yeah. And do you use the scissors some too, or?
You do use the scissors. I use the scissors for more like finishing stuff. So like once you have all the main hair off, then the scissors, you'd use that to trim their toes, for instance, like just to make nice round feet. You just scissor around the toes.
Like the hair around the toes?
The hair around the toes, yeah. Yeah, the goal is to not hit the actual foot. But
right, yeah.
And then like things like ears, you do all like shaping and stuff with scissors and thinning shears is what I use mostly.
Yeah. Okay, so you're trying to kind of keep the contours towards around its ears and things like that.
I mean, it depends what they want. Some people want straight ears too, but you have straight scissors and you have curved scissors, so you can do both.
Okay. What did the curved scissors help with?
That's good for like feet. So when you're going like around an object, then the scissors curve around the foot and it makes it easier to cut and it makes a nicer finish. Same with ears. If you want round ears, it's a lot easier if the scissors just naturally curve.
Okay.
It's a lot easier to make the shape you want.
Oh, yeah. So you talked about, so you said bathing, then you dry them, then comb them, the mats out.
If they're getting a longer cut, you want to comb them out, and if not, then you just go ahead and start on your haircut. And it really varies to people. Some people like want to get the face done right away. I often do the face last. I don't know why. Okay. But it varies, and then you want to make sure their ears are clean and things like that. So that's about it. Yeah.
How do you clean out their ears?
Just like there's like little gauzes that you use, and then there's specific solution that you put on the gauze to clean out their ear. Okay.
And that doesn't bother them?
Well, it depends on the dog.
Oh, really? Okay.
I would say like 90% of dogs are fine with it. Okay. Like people could do it at home easily. Yeah. Some people do, and some people never clean their dog's ears. I would recommend cleaning your dog's ears every now and then. Yeah. It's just a good idea.
Yeah, sounds good. You talked about how sometimes dogs don't like when their ears are cleaned. Are there other kind of trouble areas or things that you do that will be more likely to get a dog freaked out or scared?
I would say number one is probably nail trims. At least for me anyway. I find that that's the number one thing that dogs will overreact to.
Okay. Is it uncomfortable for them? Or?
Probably. There's probably like, they have the quick in their nail. It's like if you cut your nails too short and it stings a little. Yep. It'd be like that. And if you cut your nails really short, then it would bleed. Yeah. So like occasionally you can hit the quick, which is what it's called, and it will bleed. And it's not a big deal. You can stop it really easily. Okay. But it will hurt a little, obviously, for the dog. So especially with dogs with black nails, because you can't really see the quick.
Oh, I see.
So with white nails, you can see the little pink. Okay. And you want to cut right before that.
Yep.
But black nails you can't see. So it's typically like dogs with black nails that are like, they've been cut too short one too many times, and
So
they're more likely to like
yeah.
freak out even before you cut them.
I see. And do you kind of learn with different dogs kind of where that point is and
Yeah, it's nail cutting is probably one of my least favorite things of the job, but like you do get better at it, and honestly it's kind of just a confidence thing. Like you just got to do it. And there's also nail grinders, which is basically like a Dremel, and you just kind of grind the nail down shorter, and that can be easier if the dog, like, it can be easier with black nails because then it's more likely you won't hit the quick because you're just grinding slowly.
Yep.
But the dog has to, like, let you do that too. And the grinder can be intimidating. It's loud and it's, you know, grinding. So it probably feels weird. But some dogs, that's what really works, especially like big labs and stuff. That's typically what I'll do for their nails because they're bigger.
Yeah. But have you had any times where you're actually like scared from how a dog reacts or anything like that, or? Yeah,
I mean, we try to like. Usually, dogs have like tells, so you can sort of tell when they're being sketchy or if they're gonna bite or something. There's the occasional dog that doesn't do anything. It's not doing anything and it'll just snap. But that's rare. Usually they'll growl or, you know, something.
There's something that you can tell they're getting agitated. Some sort of
tell. Yeah. So typically if they look like they're aggressive or if they snap at you, then I would muzzle them. Some groomers are against muzzles, but like for me, it's a no-brainer. Like, if they're biting, then just muzzle them and do the thing they hate, and then you can take it off.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be very long, usually. And, like, the alternative would be sending them home because they're biting and they're not finished their groom.
Right, yeah.
Or, like, telling the owner they need to be sedated when you could have just muzzled them.
Right.
So we get a lot of dogs actually that are like, oh, like the owner is like, yeah, we can't do this dog. It needs to be sedated, whereas it just needs a muzzle and like confident, someone who's confident and not gonna like give in as soon as they snap or something.
Yeah. Are some people don't want to use a muzzle because is it uncomfortable for the dog or what's?
I mean, it shouldn't be that uncomfortable if you're using it correctly. It would be uncomfortable if you left it on forever.
Okay.
But for me, like, if you get one that fits them, there's all kinds of sizes. So if you get one that fits them correctly and you put that on, usually they're like, they stop freaking out and they're like, oh, well, I can't do anything now.
Oh, okay.
And they're usually better.
So it actually calms them down.
For some.
Yeah.
Others, you can't calm down. But usually it works quite well.
Yeah.
And you can use a cone too, kind of like just wrap it around their neck and then it's a cone and they can't bite you through the cone. So it's more commonly used for cats because it's hard to muzzle a cat. But like it does work for dogs too. If you're opposed to muzzles, you could try the cone.
Okay.
But typically that's what I work with for aggressive dogs. Like, but even some, like I have this one dog that comes in and he's so sweet and he's really good for everything. No problem with me shaving his feet or the pads of his feet or anything like that. But I pick up the nail clippers and he like turns into a different dog and he wants to eat me. So I muzzle him. I just know now to muzzle him for his nails and that's it.
And
it's fine.
It works much better.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we don't have to like fight then and me like trying to not get bit the whole time, whereas I can do it faster if I don't have to worry about being bit.
Yeah.
And just get it done.
Yeah. You talked about that owners aren't allowed to be or you don't allow them to be present while you're...
Not usually. There's like some exceptions.
Okay.
But almost never.
Yeah. And they're usually fine to just let them go and trust you with, well, obviously maybe not everyone is, but for the most part they're used to that, or?
Yeah. I mean, it's a building a trust thing with not just the dog, but the owner. So if you do one haircut and the owner loves it and the dog seems happy, then usually that trust builds and it kind of just keeps building every time as you form a relationship. But some owners will definitely make it worse when they drop off their dog. Because they will, it's kind of like kids, like the dog will like act up because it knows that the owner feels bad for it.
Oh.
So the drop off time can be a little dramatic if the dog, like the owner will be saying, oh, I don't know why it's like this. Oh no, he's so sad. I'm like, he's fine. He's just putting on a show, because the owner will leave and the dog will just walk in happily. Like, it's just a show.
That's so funny.
9 times out of 10, the dog will be fine as soon as the owner leaves.
Wow.
They really like play into their owner's emotions.
Yeah. Manipulation maybe?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I don't know if there's other things that you wanted to talk about there, but what do you like about your job, or what's one of the favorite things about your job?
I think the favorite thing is just seeing the end result and like knowing you probably hopefully help them, make them feel like better. Got any tangles out or anything.
Yeah.
And also I just like seeing like how happy the dog and the owner are when they pick up.
Yeah, nice.
It's just a good feeling. I try not to take it personally when the dog is like super happy to leave, but
Yeah.
it's just normal.
Right.
But yeah, that's probably my favorite thing, is just seeing the end result. And
with I don't know if you were thinking along this when you're talking about the end result, but you had mentioned that you think of it as an art, or you think about that part of it, or well, you talked about how you don't have as much desire to do art in your free time as you would have in the past.
Yeah.
Do you take pride in a really good looking
I do, yeah. It's a good feeling when they look like better going out than they did coming in, and usually they do. There's certain cuts, like maybe like a poodle cut might look more artistic and might take more artistic ability than just like a shave down.
Right.
But yeah, there's definitely art involved, I think, to certain cuts.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Neat. It is a good feeling when you like how it looks and then the owner confirms.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you think you did great and then the owner is like, oh, that's not what I had in mind. I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah.
So you never know it's all personal preference, really. So you never know. But usually it's a good feeling when they're happy.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything that you dislike about your job?
Well, I already mentioned nail trims. I don't love doing that.
Yeah.
But like probably the thing that like stresses me out the most would be the time limit. Like I mentioned before, I'm not the fastest yet. I'm getting faster, but the time limit really does stress me out sometimes. And that can be a big thing because when you're stressed, the dog will sense it.
Okay. Yeah.
So usually the dog is not going to be better for you when you're stressed out.
Right.
If you remain calm, the dog's usually more calm. So me, I get stressed when I'm pushed with time, and then the dog usually starts acting up more in those situations.
Right.
And I'm like, ugh. So I need to remember to stay calm, and that's probably the hardest part for me, is just to have patience with the dog so that the dog remains like calm and doesn't get worked up because I'm getting worked up.
It just kind of builds on itself too, right?
It really builds, and they're, like I said before, they're so intuitive and they really can sense how you're feeling. And so whenever I have got upset or annoyed at a dog, it usually doesn't play into my favor.
Yeah.
So I would say having patience is what I'm working on the most. And my least favorite part is probably the time limit. I don't know why people like want to rush someone again who's holding scissors to your dog, but they do. So
is that where the time limit comes in? Is that someone will be waiting for it to get finished, or is it because you have another one to do? Or?
Well, it's both. So you booked your day so that you could finish this one or do the other one, or sometimes they overlap. But also occasionally an owner will come in and be like, how soon can I get him back? And that I don't like when they say that, because it stresses me out. But usually you try to accommodate whatever they need, but sometimes you just got to be like, I'm sorry, like it's a busy day and it's just going to take a bit and you need to be patient and stuff. So usually they're pretty good about it though. Yeah.
And you kind of, probably as you do it more, you kind of learn how much time you need for certain dogs. And and that can work together. Yeah, very good. Yeah, anything else that you wanted to say on kind of the whole grooming section, or the questions that I had there? Actually, I do have one more question for you. This is going back to like how dogs act and whether they get freaked out and act out and things like that. What do you do with a dog that you're not familiar with, like that you've never seen before, hasn't been into the to get groomed with you before? Is there like a certain way that you approach an unfamiliar dog, or like are you extra cautious before you get to know it, or how do you do that?
Well, again, like some dogs have certain tells, so sometimes you can see a dog and immediately you'll know that this dog is probably sketchy, and
Okay.
it
Yeah.
might bite. And with those dogs, when you can kind of sense that, like if the dog just looks really uncomfortable or something,
Okay.
just basically don't give it an opportunity to bite you. So if you're doing something near its head, you just want to be careful that
Right.
you're keeping your face away from his face,
Yeah.
and things like that. Or like if you're holding on, just don't let go if he starts to fight because you'll probably get bit.
Okay. Yeah.
Things just, it's hard to explain, but
Yeah.
yeah, you basically just want to play it safe when you don't know the dog. And if it is showing like it might be an aggressive dog
Yeah.
sometimes, then just basically just try to stay at a distance, keep your fingers away and things like that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that there are actually, like, you get a sense of what a dog's like even if you're meeting it for the first time. Like probably from your experience with it, you'd have a much better sense just from seeing a dog or watching it for a
Yeah.
minute than I would. And
Yeah.
I was trying to think like, how would I know if a dog's aggressive or if I was working with it for the first time? But I can see how you kind of get experience with dogs and learn to know what to look for. And pay
Occasionally
attention
I'm
to.
wrong and like the dog looks really sketchy but then just ends up giving kisses the whole time. Like occasionally I'm wrong. Like you never know. You have to realize that it is a dog. It can't talk and
Yeah.
it's tells you might have read them wrong. But for the most part there's definitely certain things that you're like, "Oh yeah, this dog is probably going to give me trouble at some
Yeah.
point." But you might not know when that point is. So you just want to be careful and aware of all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
But yeah, you do learn the more time. Like if you were to spend a lot of time with dogs, you would learn those tells pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Sorry. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about with grooming before we move on to the next section?
No, I think we can move on.
All right. So I put down some questions here. You see pets on a regular basis that are owned by other people, and you've had some experience yourself with owning pets. So I thought I'd ask some more general questions about what it's like to own a pet, some things to look for, some things to do well, or some things that you should do, some things to maybe be careful with. So yeah, you maybe have mentioned some of these, but are there other things that as a pet owner, someone should be regularly doing to ensure that their pet's in good health, well taken care of, is that you're doing a good job of being a pet owner?
Yeah, so most of my stuff is specifically like the things I think of are specifically geared towards having a dog because that's the main experience I have.
Yep.
So number one, I would say training would be just like whether you do it yourself or you actually take it to doggy school or something and have a professional help you. I would say it's very important. It's just going to make life easier for yourself and for anyone that babysits a dog or anyone who walks the dog or grooms the dog or takes the dog to the vet. Like training will help, and it's good for a dog to have some sort of discipline so that you're controlling the dog and the dog's not controlling you.
Yeah.
So yeah, training's really important. It's like a kid that never hears the word no. It's not going to be the nicest kid probably.
Right.
It's the same for a dog. You got to say no to your dog and you got to be consistent or he'll learn very quickly what he can get away with.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, training's really good and consistency with that, and also socializing. Especially if you get a puppy, you can never like start too early socializing with like different types of people who look different, and other animals.
Okay.
It's really good to do that from like they're very young so that they're hopefully not scared of strangers and not scared of other dogs too. So that's really important to do.
Is it actually benefit the dog, or is it just make it easier to own a dog if you make sure it's socialized and is familiar with other people and animals?
I would say it benefits the dog because I would say dogs that generally like more types of people and are less anxious. So dogs that have anxiety disorders or dogs that can't like be with anyone but their owner. It's just a lot easier for you, and for the dog, I would think the dog would be happier if it liked more people.
Yeah, I guess it kind of goes both ways, that if they're more comfortable, they'll do better around other people or other animals. Yeah, great.
And another thing really great for pets is exercise. So dogs that typically like destroy things when you're not home, it's usually a boredom thing. Okay. So if you regularly exercise your dog and kind of get that energy out, then they're probably going to be better behaved for you later. Yeah. So and
just going on walks, like, is that
yeah, just going on walks, or you can take them to different agility classes and play with them, like throw a ball, whatever. Right. Yeah, but walking is great, or hiking, or anything, just something that will get that energy out. And it's not even just the walk, it's like when they're outside too, they have so much to stare at, so their brain is going too. It's stimulating their brain, and they've different things to smell and see, so it just wears them down more and makes it a little easier for you to enjoy your evening later.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, very good. Other things that you thought of there?
Yeah, so we already mentioned obviously brushing, but brushing and combing is, I would say, something you should be doing with your dog regularly if you have a dog with long hair.
Okay. And regularly, like once a day, or?
Yeah, it'll depend on the type of dog, but you can't brush them too much. Okay. Unless you're a very aggressive brusher and you're brushing the skin and giving them brush burn, don't do that. Right. But if you're just like keeping that coat and you're combing through to make sure there are no knots, that's good. You won't be doing it too much.
Like just a few minutes is enough? Or?
Well, if you do it regularly, it won't take long because there won't be like knots.
You're getting
so
them,
you're just
right
checking
away,
basically, and getting all the excess hair out so that it doesn't turn into a knot or something. Right. Yeah. And that's good for, like, I had short-haired dog, but you could go over her like constantly and get tons of hair every day. So it just helps with shedding too if you have a short-haired dog, to just brush them and get that hair off too, so your house is less hairy. Yeah. And the other thing that's good for pets is obviously like regular vet visits and making sure you're doing your vaccines and stuff. If you have an indoor dog, you're going to want to have those things done. Yeah.
And do you have to, I mean, this probably, you'll find this out from your vet, I'm guessing, but do you have to be concerned about diet and things like that with
yeah. Diet is another big one. I mean, the walking will help with that, but like, that's honestly a lot of the reason a dog gains weight is either they have like a health issue, but often it's because they're not getting exercised enough. So it often goes back to exercising your pet, but like for sure some people really overfeed their dogs or just want to give them a lot of treats. Oh yeah. So yeah, I would say be careful and do what your vet recommends for your dog as far as like feeding goes.
Yeah. What in your opinion is the best type of pet to have? So I don't know if you've talked about it yet, but what are you've had dogs, but have you had other types of pets too?
Yeah, I have. Dogs are my favorite, obviously, but I have had fish and birds and a hedgehog. Oh yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. And so fish, I probably will never have fish again. It's just boring. I can't. I don't know. They just swim around.
Yeah. Did you have like just really small fish?
Yeah, just little fish. And basically all you do is clean their aquarium. So for me, fish are not the way to go. But they could, I guess, provide some companionship if you live alone but don't have any time to take care of a pet. Maybe you should get a fish. Yep. And then birds, I had a budgie. No, I had two budgies. But it's probably best for me to never get another bird too, because I don't know, I didn't have good bird luck. Okay. They didn't last very long, and then I felt bad, but yeah. Birds are not my favorite creatures either, so.
Yeah. Did you find that they were a lot of work to clean up after?
They are, like, the same with my hedgehog, actually. Just like cleaning out the cage is probably the most work. And birds are a little trickier because you have to catch them and then, but yeah, I would say they make a mess. And birds can like shake, and then feathers are everywhere too, right? So it depends on what kind of bird you have. But I know that we had a lot of feathers around our cages when we had birds.
Yeah. So what was owning a hedgehog like?
Hedgehog was cool. I had my hedgehog for like 4.5 years. And I got him because it was unique and I thought they were adorable.
Yeah.
I would probably like do a lot of research if you're interested in having a hedgehog. Make sure you research it because it's some are great and some people have them trained and they're very like attached to you, and others are just grumpy all the time.
Okay.
Mine was kind of in between.
Okay.
But I probably didn't bring him out enough because he wasn't like potty trained.
Oh,
so
I see. Yeah.
he made like messes all over.
Yeah.
And I could never train him to just go in one spot.
Okay.
But if you can get him to do that, then it would be a lot better.
Yeah.
Because you can bring him out and not worry about that as much.
Right. Yeah.
But it was not too bad, and he wasn't super like grumpy for me anyway. So
Okay.
I thought it was a great experience, but I do think I'm best with animals like a dog or a cat where I can interact with them more and they can just be out and about all the time. You don't have to worry about losing them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Under the couch.
I'm guessing that's one of the main reasons that dogs and cats are the most popular pets is because of the interaction with them.
They provide more companionship than most other small animals anyway.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas of anything besides a dog that you might like to try sometime, or are you pretty much just on dogs at this point?
I think dogs are mainly what I would go to. I've never had a cat, but I think I could have a cat. I just might have to take like allergy pills or something because the hair does get to me more than dog hair does. Okay. But I think I have a lot of friends who have cats, and I like going to their place, and there's just a cat around every corner, and I think it's cool. Okay. And they're very entertaining animals. Like they do a lot of funny stuff. So I think cats are great, and they're more independent too. Like. So it's a nice animal to have if you have less time, but nothing like is quite as great as a dog, and they just love you so much, and I think that's the best feeling. Yeah.
What are some of the benefits that you've seen for an owner for owning a pet? Why should you own a pet?
Well, I think I already said I think companionship is probably the biggest and probably best reason to have a pet. It's just it provides like it's definitely, I know some people like don't believe in emotional support animals, but like they definitely provide emotional support from speaking from experience. And they love you unconditionally. They do. And so that's a pretty amazing thing to feel, and they bring a lot of happiness to a lot of homes. And they also teach, like, if you have kids and you want to get a puppy or something, they do teach a lot of responsibility and accountability. Yeah. So that's a good reason to get one too. If you have like a family or something, you want to teach your kids some responsibility. Yeah.
I wonder how many people, I don't know if they would think about this, but it actually helps discipline owners too to have a dog. And where I think about this is I see around our building, I see the same people out at the same times walking their dog or taking it out or out for a walk at 5 a.m. And I think, wow, if you had a pet that requires that you go out at these normal times when they're used to going out, getting their exercise or doing their business or whatever they all have to do out there. I can see how that would keep your life disciplined, and I wonder if it's actually a really real benefit for a lot of people in that way.
It does, and it provides you with regular exercise too.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
It also can help you make friends because people love talking about their dogs.
Yeah.
So if you have a dog too, you guys can really just bond immediately.
A child can do that as well, but I've seen so many conversations around our building between dog owners and their dogs are playing or whatever, and they're chatting about them, and it's an immediate conversation starter, that's for sure. Are there reasons that you shouldn't get a pet? So it's something that you should know before you get a pet or anything like that?
Yeah, I think time is the biggest one. So if you travel a lot for your work or if you work really long hours, those are big reasons to maybe at least not get a dog, at least or really research the breed, because some dogs will be more prone to separation anxiety and other dogs will be more independent and they might do better for longer periods of time alone.
Okay.
So really research that. But like, yeah, that's one reason maybe not to get one, is if you just don't think you have the time. It's not really fair to the dog then, or the pet, to be left alone all the time. Like, they're not meant to be left alone all the time. Like, they love you and they want to see you. So, and they're more likely to have behavioral issues too if you're never there.
Okay. Yeah.
But you could get like a cat. I think if you're not home as much, a cat would be much better to get than a dog.
Okay.
Because they're more independent.
Yeah.
They use litter boxes and things like that.
Yeah. Very good.
But and the other big reason I think of is money, because pets are very expensive.
Yeah.
And you can get a fish or a bird or something. It might not cost you as much, but like a dog or a cat is going to probably cost you quite a bit. With those grooming and vet visits and food and everything. There's a lot of prices to consider. It's not just the initial cost. That's usually the smallest, and then and then it's a lifelong commitment.
Right. And as the dog gets older and you want to hold on to it, you got to think about like expensive vet bills and things like that too, right? Yeah,
exactly. Dogs, as they get older, will probably have more vet bills. Like some dogs, you don't have any issues until they're like 14, and then all of a sudden you might be paying quite a lot. But that's usually lucky if you get that, because another dog might like break its leg or something in the middle of its life, and you probably going to want to repair that. Yeah.
No, do you have any? I mean, it probably really varies, but do you have any from your experience or what you've seen? Do you have a general number of what you should budget for a dog for like a year of expenses?
Ooh, I don't have a number.
Okay.
No.
Would it be a few $1,000s?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, the initial cost of a dog can really vary too, but like it's not uncommon to pay right in this day and age. It's not uncommon to pay like $3,000 or something for the initial cost of a dog. Even some rescues are more expensive now too. So but the food alone costs like, I was paying like $100 a bag because my dog had allergies, so I had to buy special food for her, and I was paying like $108 a bag, and she was a big dog too, so like every few months.
Okay. Okay, so a big bag would last for a while. It wasn't that you were doing that every week or anything?
No, not every week.
Yeah.
But maybe like a month or so.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember how often I bought food. But
so then you're spending $1,000 a year on food, and then
and then the vet bills are extreme.
Yeah. So I mean, those are, and just know what you're getting into, and that you can research that too, like the type of dog that you're getting, what to expect from that.
If you're gonna buy a dog, like a fluffy dog, you just have to think about the grooming and whether you want to pay for that every month or whatever. Yeah.
And is that, you talked about if that's that you maybe don't have to, are there like cheaper options within grooming and things like that? Like, can you do a bare minimum thing, or?
I mean, if you don't want to get them groomed as much, you just have to be more like less picky about the haircut. So like I said, they're probably going to be more matted if you don't bring them often.
Right.
So either you're really good at brushing and you're brushing them for months at a time, or they're going to go short, and then that takes care of that. And some people do that. They bring their dog in, you do a short shave, and then they're good to go for a few months. And it's fine. That works for them. There's no judgment, really. It's just you have to be willing to realize that your dog can't stay long if you're not bringing them in regularly. Yeah.
We had a couple of pets growing up, but I never got attached to them enough that I wanted to have a pet when we moved out.
Right.
And that's been a joy in my general agreement on that we're not interested in having a pet.
Well, that's lucky that you agree.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's lots of reasons for that. I didn't want the responsibility of it or the cost of it and that kind of thing. But just in the last few months, my sister-in-law, I had no desire to have a dog as a pet, but my sister-in-law got one, and it's just when I first met her, I'm like, man, if I had a dog like that, I think I could get into that. So
I'm pretty sure I've groomed the dog you're talking
yeah,
about.
yes,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
She's very, very nice dog.
I know,
Very
yeah.
nice
And
dog.
so just if it's like a well-trained
and she's
dog
like
that.
really relaxed, which they're not all that relaxed.
Okay.
But she's been chill ever since she's a baby. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a good dog.
So maybe that's a special exception or something. But
Yeah.
I could see with a dog like that, I could enjoy having one around.
Most people can be persuaded to become dog people if they're around dogs.
Yeah.
Usually indoor dogs, though. You guys always had outdoor dogs.
Yes, that's right. We did. Yeah.
Usually, once you get a dog inside, you're gonna, it's with you so much it becomes a part of the family.
Yeah.
You'll love it, and a lot of people are won over that way.
Yeah. Well, and I a couple times I would stay for a few days or even for 2 weeks one time with your family, and I got a bit attached to your dog as well, and so I can see how that's the case. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just in wrapping up here, I'm curious if you have advice for pet owners, and maybe you've talked about some of this already, but just do you have some advice to sum up in regards to grooming, what pet owners should know?
Yeah, so in regards to grooming, I have mentioned throughout, but basically just like do your research before you get a dog, so that you can kind of like research how much grooming that is expected of that dog and see if that's something you can consider and how much you're willing to be brushing them, how much time you have to do that, and that's the kind of thing you need to think about before you get a dog.
Right.
And then everyone wants like a non-shedding breed, but not everyone realizes that those dogs are much more likely to mat because they don't shed out their hair, so it's gonna tangle more.
So you kind of gotta take that if you don't want the shedding.
There's pros and cons of both, really. But yeah, and then
anything else to pet owners there that you were thinking of?
Just even I do have one thing for grooming. Some people, they know their dog hates grooming, so they'll only take it like 1 or 2 times a year because they say the dog hates it.
Yep.
Typically, I would say if your dog doesn't like it, instead of waiting that long, maybe bring them more often.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like anything, like you can try to train your dog, and you can try to get the dog to like not hate grooming as much if you bring them more.
Right.
And they'll get used to it. There's exceptions. Some dogs just hate it, and you can't get them to get over that. So maybe 1 or 2 times a year is the way to go.
Okay.
But usually, just with like bringing them more regularly, and then it's not painful either because they don't have mats.
Right. Yeah.
So
so maybe the reason they're not liking it is because it's uncomfortable.
Just a hairball. And so bringing the dog more often when they don't like it to me is a good idea, and you should start that very young too. Grooming is a good thing to start very young.
Okay.
But everything is a good thing to start young. But so that would be my advice: just to do your research and figure out what's going to be best for you, and then start them young. Yeah,
very good. Do you have advice for someone that's thinking about starting out in becoming a groomer or is starting out as a groomer? From your experience of starting out, do you have any advice you'd give to them?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, I think probably a good way to do it, if you're like me and haven't had no experience, try to get a job in a salon as a bather and work from there. Because then you can get a feel of the atmosphere and see if it's for you. You'll work with the dogs and see how you respond to them and how they respond to you. It's not for everyone. It is like a lot of work, and it's very physical work too. So it's a good idea to know a little bit before you just go in. But if you're like me, you can just go to school and hope for the best. So
would you recommend that someone do the program that you did? Like, have you found it beneficial?
It was a good program for me. I learned a lot. So I would recommend some sort of schooling if you want to, and if that's the way you learn best too, with a teacher. But it's still, you could go and do bathing for a year or whatever, and then decide you want to do schooling. You can go do that as well.
It's a good chance to get immersed in it before you or to learn about the job before committing to it. Yeah, very good. Is it something that you could kind of learn on your own pet as well? Like, do people groom groom their own pets?
Yeah, I think a lot of people start out that way actually. If they have like they have a poodle or something, and they just start by grooming their own dog. I never did that because I was kind of young when we had our Schnauzer. Right. But even as a young kid, though, I remember combing our dog out. Like, I remember doing that a lot. Yeah. And I was usually the one to bathe it, too. Okay. So I think a part of me always enjoyed that. Yeah. Even when I was younger.
Very good.
But, yeah, a lot of people start with practicing on their own dogs. Mm-hmm. Now I typically like short-haired dogs, which is a popular thing with groomers. I guess if you groom dogs all day, then you maybe don't want to do your own. Maybe.
Like a short-haired dog for yourself?
Yeah, that's what I tend to lean towards now. Okay, so. Yeah,
very good. Yeah, well, thank you for what you've all shared, and I've learned a lot, and find it fascinating, all the different things that you experience and have to know to be able to do your job. Is there anything else that you wanted to say or that I missed asking you here before we wrap it up?
No, I think we covered quite a lot. So
all right, awesome. Thanks so much for coming and sharing.
Yes,
Tori. I
really enjoyed that. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it as well.
Good, excellent. Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you Tori for sharing your knowledge with us. I found it very informative to hear about all the things that go into owning a pet and all of the things that you should consider if you want to have a healthy dog or other pet and want to take good care of it. And I also really enjoyed hearing Tori's story of how she got into the job and the things that she does there. So thank you, Tori, for sharing those things with us. I want to thank each one of you for listening, as I already did, and especially to those of you that tune in for every show and listen to an entire episode, whether you think it's going to interest you or not. And I love hearing from those of you that listen and have things to share with me. I love hearing things that you're enjoying about the show and also ways that it can be improved if there's something that I could be doing better. So please feel free to share those things with me. One of my goals of this podcast is to encourage us to have conversations with those around us and to learn from the everyday experts in our lives. And I'd love to hear about your everyday expertise. So if you want to share, send me an email and share what gets you excited, what you're passionate about, whether it's your job or a hobby. I'd love to hear that. Also, if you've had a conversation with an everyday expert and you want to tell me a little bit about that would be great to hear as well. So have those conversations with people around you and try to learn as much as you can from the everyday experts in your life. You can contact me at contact@everydayexpertise.ca. Or also go to the website, which is everydayexpertise.ca, and you can learn more about the podcast there. That's all for now. Join me again next week to learn from the expertise of everyday people.